What if the richest young man in Lagos disguised himself as a filthy beggar on the streets of Ojalegba, searching desperately for something his billions couldn't buy? What if the woman who fell in love with his poverty never knew she was holding the hand of a tech empire owner? And what if the truth, when it finally surfaced, destroyed everything they had built together? This is Elmerem Stories, where African folktales meet real-life lessons that will change how you see the world. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's begin. Adeniyi Afolayan sat alone in his penthouse overlooking Victoria Island, surrounded by luxury that felt like a prison. At 29, he had everything most men dreamed of: a tech empire worth billions, cars that turned heads, properties across 3 continents, and influence that opened every door in Nigeria. Yet every night, he returned to empty rooms and emptier conversations. Every woman who smiled at him saw only his wallet. Every relationship ended the same way, with requests for money, complaints about gifts not being expensive enough, demands for trips to Dubai and Paris. His late grandmother's voice haunted him during those lonely nights. She used to tell him stories of her youth in their ancestral village in Osun State, stories of a time when a man could win a woman's heart with kindness and hard work, not bank statements. She spoke of genuine love that survived poverty, war, and hardship. Adeniyi wondered if such love still existed in modern Lagos, where everyone knew his name and his net worth. One morning, he made a decision that would change everything. He called his personal assistant, Kunal, into his office and told him the plan. Kunal thought his boss had lost his mind. Disguise yourself as a beggar? Sleep on the streets? Risk your safety and reputation? But Adeniyi's mind was made up. If genuine love existed anywhere in Lagos, he would find it. And he would find it as a man with nothing. The transformation took hours. Kunal brought old, torn clothes that smelled of the streets. They rubbed dirt and engine oil into Adeniyi's skin. A barber came to mess up his usually perfect haircut and create a wild, unkempt beard. When Adeniyi looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The polished CEO had vanished, replaced by someone who looked like he had been sleeping under bridges for months. Kunal drove him to Ojalegba in an unmarked car, still protesting. He would watch from a distance, Kunal insisted, just in case something went wrong. Adeniyi stepped out into the chaos of Lagos traffic, hawkers shouting, Danfo buses honking, the smell of suya and exhaust fumes mixing in the humid air. He found a spot near the bridge, sat down on the concrete, and placed an empty tin in front of him. The first hour was humbling. Hundreds of people walked past without even glancing his way. Some hissed in disgust. Others muttered insults about lazy young men who refused to work. A few spat near his feet. Adeniyi felt something he had never experienced before: complete invisibility. In his real life, people stopped to greet him, to ask for favors, to take selfies with him. Here, as a beggar, he was less than nothing. Then she appeared. A young woman in a simple Ankara dress, carrying a small bag and hurrying somewhere. She stopped suddenly, walked back, and knelt beside him. Without a word, she opened her bag and pulled out a warm meat pie wrapped in paper and a bottle of water. She placed them gently in his hands. Stay strong, brother. Things will get better. Her voice was soft, but sincere. She smiled at him, not with pity, but with genuine kindness, and then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd before he could even say thank you. Adeniyi sat there holding the meat pie, something stirring in his chest. It was such a small gesture, probably costing her less than 500 naira, but it meant more to him than any expensive gift he had ever received. Maybe, just maybe, genuine hearts still existed in this city. The next day brought harsher lessons. Adeniyi returned to the same spot, hoping to see the kind woman again. Instead, an older woman in an expensive galley stopped her car nearby and shouted at him through the window. Useless boy, you are young and strong, yet you sit here begging instead of working. Shame on you. Your parents must be crying wherever they are. Her words cut deeper than he expected. Other people turned to look, some nodding in agreement. Adeniyi wanted to defend himself, to explain that this was just an experiment, but he kept quiet. This was what real beggars faced every day: judgment, scorn, and humiliation. Later that afternoon, chaos erupted nearby. A thief snatched a market woman's bag and ran through the crowd. People shouted, but no one moved to help. Then a female police officer appeared, chasing the thief with impressive speed. Sergeant Halima Yusuf was not a woman to be trifled with. She cornered the thief in an alley, and even when he pulled a knife, she didn't hesitate. With quick movements that spoke of serious training, she disarmed him and pinned him to the ground while calling for backup. Adeni watched in awe. When the situation calmed down, he approached her to express his admiration. She looked at him with sharp, assessing eyes. "You should find somewhere safer to stay. These streets are not kind to vulnerable people." He tried to engage her in more conversation, curious about this fearless woman, but she had no interest. Her focus was entirely on her duty, not on romance or small talk. She walked away without looking back, leaving Adeni both disappointed and impressed. The following day, he moved to Balagan Market, thinking a busier area might bring different experiences. He was wrong about the kind of difference. A group of area boys, rough young men who controlled informal territories, spotted him and circled around. They mocked his appearance, demanded money he didn't have, and threatened to teach him a lesson about sitting in their territory without permission. Just as the situation turned dangerous, Sergeant Halima appeared again. She scattered the boys with nothing but her presence and a few sharp words. They knew better than to challenge her. After they fled, she turned to Adeni with something that might have been concern in her eyes. "Why do you keep putting yourself in danger? There are shelters, places that can help you." Her unexpected compassion touched him. She saw him as someone worth protecting, even though he looked like he had nothing. After she left, Adeni sat quietly, thinking about the different kinds of goodness he was discovering. The spontaneous kindness of the woman with the meat pie, the fierce protective courage of Sergeant Halima. Both were real. Both were beautiful. But neither were romantic love. Seeking a gentler environment, he began spending time at a small cafe near Yaba. The owner was lenient, and Adeni sat outside on the pavement, watching people come and go. That was where he met Tenny. She was a barista in the cafe, with quick wit and bright eyes that seemed to notice everything. The first time she brought him free coffee, she said nothing, just placed the cup beside him with a small smile. Over the following days, their interactions grew. Tenny would chat with him during her breaks, asking about his life with genuine interest, but never invasive questions. She made him laugh with her observations about difficult customers. She shared her own dreams of opening a bookshop cafe someday. Adeni found himself captivated by her intelligence and independence. She treated him with respect, never with pity. One afternoon, everything changed. A group of well-dressed women came into the cafe and noticed Adeni sitting outside. They complained loudly to the owner about allowing a dirty beggar to loiter and drive away proper customers. Their mockery was cruel and public. Adeni felt his face burn with shame. Then Tenny stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm as she defended him, pointing out that he never bothered anyone and that kindness cost nothing. She embarrassed the women so thoroughly with her logic and dignity that they left in a huff. When she returned to work, she winked at him as if nothing unusual had happened. But Adeni's mind was churning with questions. Was Tenny kind to everyone, or was there something special between them? Did she feel what he was beginning to feel? He wanted to know, needed to know, but asking would risk exposing his disguise. And somewhere in his heart, a new fear was growing. What would happen when the truth finally came out? The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope between two worlds. Adeni spent his mornings being a beggar and his evenings returning to his penthouse, where Cunnel debriefed him like a soldier returning from a mission. The contrast was dizzying. One moment he sat on dirty pavements. The next he stood in marble bathrooms washing away the grime. But increasingly, his thoughts stayed with Tenny even after he left the cafe. He found himself looking forward to their conversations more than anything else in his real life. Tenny had a way of making the simplest topics fascinating. She spoke about books she loved, music that moved her, and her frustrations with a society that judged people by their appearance. She never asked him for anything, never expected anything, and that made him want to give her everything. One afternoon, as rain began to fall over Yaba, Tenny invited him to sit inside the cafe instead of getting soaked. The owner frowned but said nothing. They sat in a corner booth, and for the first time, their conversation turned deeply personal. Adeni, careful to maintain his disguise, fabricated a story about losing his family in a tragic accident and falling into hard times. Tenny listened with tears in her eyes. Sometimes the world breaks us in ways we never expected. But broken things can be mended. You just need to believe you are worth mending. Her words struck something raw inside him. He realized with uncomfortable clarity that his disguise was no longer just an experiment. It was becoming a lie that was trapping him. He wanted to tell her the truth, wanted to see if she would still look at him the same way if she knew he owned the building they sat in. But fear held his tongue. That evening, as he prepared to leave, he made a decision. Tomorrow he would tell her everything. He would confess the deception and hope that somehow she would understand. But fate had different plans. The next day, just as he was gathering courage to speak, Connell arrived at the cafe with 2 security men. There was an emergency board meeting about a hostile takeover attempt. Denis had to leave immediately. Tenny watched in visible confusion as the well-dressed men treated the beggar with obvious deference, as security escorted him to a luxury car waiting nearby. Denis turned back, trying to explain, but Connell was already pulling him away. The last thing he saw was Tenny's face, shock, confusion, and something that looked like betrayal frozen across her features. When he returned to the cafe the next morning, desperate to explain, Tenny was gone. The other staff members said she had resigned suddenly, leaving no forwarding information. One of them, a young man who seemed suspicious of Denis, mentioned that Tenny had been crying when she left. The knowledge sat like a stone in Denis' stomach. He had hurt someone genuinely kind without even meaning to. For 3 days, he wandered Lagos aimlessly, his heart not in the experiment anymore. Connell suggested ending the whole thing, but Denis refused. Something stubborn in him insisted that he finish what he started, that he find what he was looking for. Or perhaps he was just running from the guilt of what happened with Tenny. On the 4th day, while walking through Tejuosho Market, he was violently shoved aside by security guards clearing a path. A young woman in an elegant blue dress walked through, her bearings suggesting wealth and privilege. Denis stumbled and fell, his tin scattering coins across the dusty ground. An older market woman who witnessed the incident scolded the guards loudly in Yoruba, her words sharp enough to make them stop. The young woman in blue turned, and for a moment, her eyes met Denis'. There was something in her gaze, not pity, not disgust, but genuine concern. Are you hurt? I am so sorry. They should not have pushed you like that. Her voice carried a soft Igbo accent. She knelt in her expensive dress in the dirty market, and helped him gather the scattered coins. Her guards looked uncomfortable, but she ignored them. When she handed him the coins, her fingers briefly touched his, and Denis felt an unexpected jolt. What is your name? The question surprised him. In all his time as a beggar, no one had asked his name. Denis. I am Amara. Amara Ease. Something about the way she said it made him believe she was telling him something important, offering something more than just a name. Over the next few days, their encounters continued. It started as coincidence, or so it seemed. Amara would appear in the market at certain times, always stopping to talk with him. Their conversations were different from what he had shared with Tenny. With Amara, he felt a strange equality, as if she saw past the disguise without even knowing there was one. She told him about her own struggles, about being the daughter of a wealthy Igbo family that expected her to marry strategically, about feeling trapped by expectations and traditions. She spoke about wanting to matter for more than her family name, about dreams of helping communities instead of just attending charity galas. Denis shared his fabricated story again, but this time he wove more truth into the lies. He spoke about loneliness, about feeling unseen, about searching for something real in a world full of pretense. Amara listened as if every word mattered. You are not what you appear to be. I do not mean your circumstances. I mean something deeper. You carry yourself like someone who has lost something precious, not someone who never had anything to lose. Her perception unnerved him. She was seeing too much, getting too close to the truth. But instead of pulling away, Denis found himself drawn deeper. He wanted her to know him, wanted to drop the disguise and show her everything. But the memory of Tenny's hurt face stopped him every time. Their meetings became more frequent, more intentional. They met by the waterfront at sunset, in quiet corners of churches during afternoon prayers, at busy bus stops where they could hide in plain sight. The conversations deepened. Amara shared that she was engaged to a politician's son, a man her family had chosen, a man she did not love. The engagement weighed on her like a prison sentence. Sometimes I wonder if I will ever know what it feels like to be chosen for myself, not for my family connections, or my father's business empire. Adeni wanted to tell her that he understood exactly how she felt, that his entire experiment was born from the same desperate need. But the words stuck in his throat, trapped behind layers of deception. One afternoon, as they sat on a bench near Tarqua Bay, watching the waves, Amara did something unexpected. She reached over and took his hand. Her skin was soft, her grip gentle but firm. I know you are hiding something, Adeni. I do not know what it is, but I can feel it. Whatever your secret is, whenever you are ready to share it, I will listen without judgment. The moment was perfect for confession. The sunset painted everything in golden light. The sound of the ocean created a private world around them. But before Adeni could speak, his phone, the one he had forgotten to leave behind that day, rang in his pocket. The expensive ringtone shattered the moment like dropped glass. Amara's eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing as Adeni fumbled with the phone, declining the call. The spell was broken. They sat in uncomfortable silence until Amara quietly said she needed to go home. As she left, Adeni felt the weight of his deception grow heavier. That night, Kunal presented a plan. He would approach Amara himself, pretending to be a wealthy admirer. He would offer her money, gifts, opportunities, everything Adeni's wealth could provide. If she accepted, they would know her heart was no different from all the others. If she refused, they would know her love was genuine. Adeni hated the idea immediately. It felt like another layer of deception, another test when Amara had already proven herself 1,000 times over. But Kunal was insistent. You need to be sure, boss. You are about to give your heart to this woman. You deserve to know the truth about her before you reveal your truth to her. Reluctantly, Adeni agreed. The next day, as planned, Kunal approached Amara in an expensive suit, driving one of Adeni's luxury cars. Adeni watched from a distance, his stomach churning with anxiety and guilt. Kunal was smooth, charming, offering Amara the world on a silver platter. But Amara barely let him finish his pitch before she politely, but firmly declined. I appreciate the offer, but I am not interested. My heart belongs to someone else. Someone else? Who? Kunal pressed, playing his role perfectly. That is none of your business. But I will tell you this. He has nothing that the world considers valuable, yet he is worth more to me than all the money you are offering. She walked away with her head high, leaving Kunal standing there. When Kunal reported back, Adeni felt relief wash over him like rain. She had passed the test he never should have given her. Her love was real. Now he had to tell her the truth before it destroyed everything. The next evening, he asked her to meet him at a quiet park in Suralere. The words were prepared, rehearsed, ready. But as he looked into her trusting eyes, fear paralyzed him again. He started to speak, to confess, but his voice failed. Instead, he took her hand and made a promise. Tomorrow, Amara. Tomorrow I will tell you everything. I will show you who I really am. And I hope you will forgive me. Amara smiled, though something worried flickered in her eyes. She squeezed his hand and nodded. I will be here. But as Adeni walked away that night, he could not shake the feeling that time was running out, that the truth would come crashing down in a way he could not control. And he was right. Because in the shadows of that park, someone had been watching them. Someone who recognized Adeni despite his disguise. Someone who would make sure his secret exploded in the worst possible way. The following afternoon, Adeni arrived at the park early, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He had spent the entire morning rehearsing what he would say, how he would explain everything. Kunal had offered to come along for moral support, but Adeni refused. This was something he had to do alone. Amara arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple yellow dress that made her look radiant in the afternoon sun. She smiled when she saw him, but there was tension in her shoulders, an awareness that something significant was about to happen. They sat on a bench overlooking a small pond where children played nearby, their laughter creating a bittersweet soundtrack to the moment. Adeni, whatever you need to tell me, just say it. I am stronger than I look. He took a deep breath and began. He told her everything. About his company, his wealth, the loneliness that drove him to this desperate experiment, the disguise, the lies. The words tumbled out in a rush, each confession cutting deeper than the last. He watched her face change as the truth sank in. Confusion gave way to shock, shock to hurt, and hurt to something that looked like anger. When he finished, silence stretched between them like an ocean. Amara stood up, her hands trembling. So all of this, every conversation, every moment we shared, was based on a lie? You made me fall in love with someone who does not even exist? Her voice cracked on the last word. Adenii stood too, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. Amara, please. My feelings were never a lie. Everything I felt, everything I said about loneliness and searching for something real, that was all true. I just could not find another way to know if someone could love me for who I am, not what I have. And you thought lying to me was the solution? You thought testing me like some experiment would lead to real love? Tears streamed down her face now, and each one felt like a knife in Adenii's chest. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I shared my deepest fears with you. I trusted you. I chose you over everything. Over my family's approval, over the engagement they arranged, over the comfortable life I could have had. And it was all based on a lie. She turned to leave, but Adenii moved in front of her. Please, just give me a chance to make this right. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices. But my love for you is real, Amara. That is the one true thing in all of this. Amara shook her head, fresh tears falling. I need time. I need space to think about all of this. Do not contact me. Do not follow me. If I decide to forgive you, I will let you know. She walked away, and Adenii let her go, knowing that chasing her would only make things worse. He sat back down on the bench and put his face in his hands, feeling like his experiment had cost him the only thing that truly mattered. The next week was torture. Adenii threw himself into work, but nothing held his attention. Board meetings became a blur. Investment reports went unread. Kunnel watched his boss deteriorate with growing concern. Finally, on the 8th day, Amara called. She agreed to meet him at a small cafe in Surulere, neutral ground, away from memories. When she arrived, she looked tired but composed. They ordered drinks neither of them wanted and sat across from each other in uncomfortable silence until Amara spoke first. I have spent the last week trying to understand why you did what you did. Part of me is still angry. Part of me feels foolish. But another part of me keeps remembering the conversations we had, the connection we shared, and wondering if that was real despite the lie surrounding it. Adenii leaned forward, careful not to invade her space. It was real, Amara. Every word, every feeling, every moment. That was the truest thing I have ever experienced. The disguise was fake, but the man you fell in love with was me. My fears, my loneliness, my search for meaning, all of that was real. Amara studied his face for a long moment. I believe you. But belief is not the same as trust. You broke something between us, Adenii. If we are going to move forward, we have to rebuild it piece by piece. And that will take time. I will wait as long as it takes. I will do whatever it takes. A small, sad smile touched Amara's lips. Then prove it. Not with money or grand gestures. Prove it with honesty, with patience, with transparency. Show me the real you. Not the beggar, not the billionaire persona you wear for the world, but the actual man underneath all of that. Over the following weeks, they rebuilt their relationship slowly, carefully. Adenii showed Amara his world. Not just the wealth and privilege, but the pressure, the loneliness, the constant feeling of being surrounded by people who wanted something from him. He introduced her to the few genuine friends he had. People who had known him before the money. People who saw past the empire. Amara, in turn, brought him into her life more fully. She introduced him to her best friend, Chioma, who grilled him mercilessly about his intentions. She took him to her favorite spots in Lagos, places that had nothing to do with wealth or status, just life and community and authenticity. One evening, Amara told him she wanted him to meet her family. It was a significant step, a sign that she was seriously considering a future with him. But there was nervousness in her voice. My father is very traditional. And my family, they have heard rumors about you. About us. Some of them think you are not serious, that this is some kind of game for you. Then I will show them I am serious. The visit to her family home in Akoka was intimidating. The house was modest but well kept, filled with family photos and the smell of home-cooked food. Amara's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ease, greeted him with polite but cautious warmth. Her younger siblings were more openly curious, especially her teenage brother, who kept asking about Adenii's tech company. Her father, a retired civil servant with sharp eyes and a firmer handshake, led Adenii to the living room for what was clearly going to be an interrogation. So, Mr. Afolayan, my daughter tells me you are very wealthy. She also tells me you deceived her by pretending to be poor. Explain to me why I should trust you with my daughter's heart." Adeni met the older man's gaze steadily. "Sir, I cannot defend what I did. It was wrong to deceive her, and I have spent every day since trying to earn back her trust. But I can tell you this, I love your daughter more than anything in this world. Not because of who her family is or what she can give me, but because of who she is. Her kindness, her strength, her intelligence, her heart. I am a better man because of her, and I want to spend my life proving that I am worthy of her love." The room fell silent. Amara's mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Her father's expression remained unreadable for a long moment before he nodded slowly. "Words are easy, young man. Actions are what matter. Show us through your actions that you mean what you say." Adeni left the house that evening with Amara's hand in his, feeling like he had passed an important test. But the hardest battle was still ahead, his own family. The summons came 2 days later. His parents, Chief Tund and Madame Ronk Afalayan, demanded his presence at the family estate in Ikoyi. Adeni knew what was coming. They had heard about Amara, and they were not pleased. The meeting was every bit as difficult as he anticipated. His mother was furious, pacing the opulent living room like a caged lioness. "Have you lost your mind, Adeni? That girl is nobody. Her family has no connections, no influence, no political power. We have already arranged a perfect match for you with Kayamika Benson. Her father is a senator. The union would expand our reach, strengthen our position. And you want to throw all of that away for some market girl you met while playing dress-up as a beggar? She is not a market girl, mother. Her name is Amara, and I love her." His father, typically the calmer of the two, spoke in a dangerously quiet voice. "Love is a luxury, Adeni. Marriage is business. It is alliance. It is strategy. You are the heir to this empire. Your choices affect more than just you. Then maybe I do not want to be the heir." The words shocked even Adeni himself. But once spoken, he realized he meant them. "I have spent my entire life building what you wanted me to build, becoming what you wanted me to become. For once, I want to choose for myself. And I choose Amara." His mother's face went cold. "Then you choose to lose everything. Walk away from this family, and you walk away from your company, your inheritance, everything. So be it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. His parents stared at him in disbelief, not quite believing he would follow through. But Adeni stood his ground, and eventually, he left the estate with his head held high and his heart heavy. The next few weeks brought escalating pressure. His parents arranged a formal dinner with Kayamika, hoping that meeting her would change his mind. Kayamika was beautiful, sophisticated, and ambitious. She made her interest in him very clear, speaking about the power they could wield together, the empire they could build. But Adeni felt nothing. When he politely declined her advances, she became angry, warning him that he was making a powerful enemy. His mother took matters into her own hands, visiting Amara at her workplace, a small boutique in Lekki where Amara worked as a manager. Madame Ronk did not bother with subtlety. She insulted Amara's background, questioned her education and her intentions, and finally offered her money to leave Adeni alone. 5 million naira to disappear forever. Amara's response was calm but firm. "Madam, I understand you are protecting your son, but I do not need your money, and I do not want it. I love Adeni for who he is, not what he has. If he chooses to walk away from me, that will be his decision. But I will not be bought or bullied into leaving him." The battle lines were drawn. But the situation took a darker turn when Kayamika and 2 hired men cornered Adeni at an old pier in Lekki one night. They threatened him, warning that if he did not end things with Amara, there would be consequences. Adeni refused to be intimidated, but he realized the danger was real. He hired security for both himself and Amara. Finally, Adeni and Amara decided to face his parents together. They arrived at the Ikoyi estate hand in hand, a united front. The meeting was tense, voices were raised, accusations flew. But in the end, Adeni made his position clear. He would not abandon Amara, no matter the cost. His mother's final move was to spread rumors online, painting Amara as a gold digger who had manipulated their son. The story went viral, with think pieces and social media debates about class, love, and authenticity. Adeni fought back, using his own platform to tell the true story, exposing his parents' manipulation and interference. The public battle forced his parents' hand. During a final confrontation, Adeni presented evidence of everything they had done: the bribes to Kayamika, the threats, the attempts to sabotage his relationship. Faced with the possibility of public scandal, Chief Tund and Madame Ronk reluctantly agreed to stop interfering. But the real twist came in the most unexpected way. As the dust settled and plans for an engagement ceremony began, Adeni received a message that changed everything. It was from Tinny, the barista he had abandoned at the cafe months ago. She asked to meet him. When they met at a quiet restaurant, Tinny looked different, more confident, more polished. She got straight to the point. "I want to explain something to you, Adeni. When you left that day with those security guards, I was confused and hurt. But then I did some research. I figured out who you really were. And I realized something important." Adeni's heart sank, fearing she was about to expose him publicly or demand compensation. But Tinny surprised him. "I realized that what you were searching for, someone who could love you without knowing your wealth, that search was valid, even if your method was flawed. And I want to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For showing me that I was capable of loving someone without conditions. You see, I had been hurt before by someone who used me for my family's connections. I had built walls around my heart. But when I cared for you as a beggar, I rediscovered my own capacity for genuine love. It healed something in me. I am getting married next month to someone I met through the church, someone who saw me for who I am. In a strange way, knowing you helped me find him." The revelation stunned Adeni. His experiment had not just been about him. It had touched other lives in ways he never imagined. But Tinny was not finished. "There is something else you should know. That first woman who gave you the meat pie and water on your very first day as a beggar? I saw her again recently. Her name is Ngozi. She is a nurse who has been sending money to care for orphans in her hometown for the past 5 years. She barely has anything herself, but she gives constantly. She did not see a billionaire in disguise that day. She saw a human being who needed help. That is who she is, someone who would give to anyone, regardless of who they might turn out to be." Adeni felt tears prick his eyes. All this time, he had been testing others, evaluating their worthiness, measuring their authenticity. But these women, Ngozi, Tinny, Sergeant Halima, and especially Amara, had never been performing for him. They had simply been living according to their values, regardless of who was watching. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As Adeni and Amara prepared for their engagement ceremony, Kunnel approached him with a confession that would reframe everything. "Boss, there is something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you months ago." The seriousness in Kunnel's voice sent a chill down Adeni's spine. "You remember when you first decided to do this experiment? When you first told me about your grandmother's stories of genuine love?" Adeni nodded slowly. "Your grandmother knew my mother. They were childhood friends in the village. Before your grandmother died, she made my mother promise something. She was worried about you, about the path your life was taking, about the emptiness she saw in you despite all your success. She asked my mother to help guide you somehow." Adeni's heart began to race. "My mother called me. She asked me to encourage your experiment, to support it, to make sure you followed through even when it got difficult. Your grandmother knew you needed to learn these lessons, to understand the difference between genuine love and transactional relationships. In a way, she orchestrated all of this from beyond the grave." The revelation hit Adeni like a physical blow. His entire experiment, the journey that had seemed so spontaneous, so desperate, had been influenced by his grandmother's final wish. Everything he thought he had discovered on his own had been guided by the wisdom of the woman who loved him most. But there was more. "And Amara. You need to know something about Amara." Kunnel hesitated, and Adeni felt his world tilting. "That first day when her security guards pushed you in Tejuosho Market? That was not an accident. Amara had seen you before, weeks earlier, when you were still learning how to be a beggar. She saw past your disguise somehow, recognized something in you. She asked around, figured out who you really were. Every meeting after that first one was not coincidence. She orchestrated them." Adeni felt the ground dissolve beneath his feet. Amara had known all this time, but Kunnel held up a hand. "Wait, before you react, you need to understand why. Amara was not trying to trap you or manipulate you. She was trying to escape her own trap, the arranged marriage, the controlling family, the life mapped out for her. When she figured out who you were and what you were doing, she saw an opportunity. Not for your money, but for freedom. She thought that if she could make you fall in love with her genuinely, Without revealing she knew your identity, she could prove to both of you that real love was possible. She was running her own experiment, Edeni, testing herself just as much as testing you. The world seemed to stop spinning. Everything Edeni thought he understood about the past months rearranged itself in his mind. The woman he loved had been playing the same game he was, searching for the same truth, taking the same risks. Does she know that I know? Connell shook his head. I only discovered this yesterday, through a private investigator I hired to make sure she was safe from your parents' schemes. I found her diary entries, her plans. She was going to tell you after the engagement. She wanted you to know that she chose you knowing exactly who you were, that her love was not blind faith, but informed choice. Edeni sat down heavily, overwhelmed by the layers of truth and deception, authenticity and performance, testing and trust. His experiment had become a mirror, reflecting not just the hearts of others, but the complexity of love itself. The engagement ceremony was held at a quiet lakeside spot in Ape, just as planned. Close friends and supporters gathered. Chioma, Sergeant Halima, who had become an unexpected friend, even Tinny and her fiancé. Amara looked radiant in traditional Igbo attire, and Edeni wore his Yoruba agbada with pride. But before the ceremony began, Edeni asked for a private moment with Amara by the water's edge. He told her everything Connell had revealed, about his grandmother's influence, about the investigation, about the diary. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. I was going to tell you today, after we exchanged rings. I was terrified you would feel betrayed, the same way I felt when you first told me the truth. But I realized something important through all of this. Love is not about perfect honesty from the beginning. It is about choosing honesty when it matters, about choosing each other despite the fears and the mistakes, and the complicated paths that brought us together. Edeni took her hands. We are both fools, you know that. Playing games, testing each other, building elaborate traps to catch something that can only be given freely. Amara laughed through her tears. Yes, we are perfect fools, perfect for each other. They kissed as the sun set over the lake, and when they returned to their gathered friends and family, they did so with all secrets finally laid bare. The ceremony continued with a new understanding, not of perfect love, but of real love, messy and complicated, built on choices rather than circumstances. In his closing words to the gathered witnesses, Edeni spoke the truth he had learned. I went searching for someone who could love me without knowing my wealth. What I found was something more complex and more beautiful. People who loved according to their nature, regardless of who I was. A nurse who gives to everyone. A barista who protects everyone. A police officer who serves everyone. And a woman brave enough to see through my disguise and love me anyway, while running her own experiment to find her own freedom. They taught me that authentic love is not about testing others. It is about being authentic yourself and trusting that the right person will recognize and choose that authenticity. Amara stood beside him, squeezing his hand, adding her own words. We both made mistakes. We both tested and hid and feared. But in the end, we chose truth. We chose each other. And that choice, made freely with full knowledge of who we each are, that is what makes our love real. As the ceremony concluded and the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Edeni realized his grandmother's final gift had not been to lead him to easy answers. It had been to lead him through difficult questions, to show him that love worth having was love worth working for, and that authenticity in relationships was not about perfect beginnings, but about honest continuations. He and Amara stood together, two people who had disguised themselves in different ways, tested each other in different ways, and finally chosen each other with full knowledge and open hearts. Their future would not be without challenges. His parents' reluctant acceptance remained fragile, and bridging their different backgrounds would take continued effort. But they would face those challenges together, armed with the most important lesson of all, that real love is not found by hiding who you are or testing who others are. It is built by choosing to be seen completely and choosing to see another completely, then loving anyway. The engagement party continued into the night, filled with music, laughter, and the warmth of genuine community. And somewhere, Edeni believed, his grandmother was smiling. In the end, love taught them what no test could reveal, that authenticity cannot be demanded, only offered. Adeni learned that genuine hearts do not need to be tested. They reveal themselves through their nature. Amara learned that freedom is not found by escaping one trap into another, but by choosing truth even when it is terrifying. Both discovered that real love begins not when all secrets are hidden, but when all secrets are known and two people choose each other anyway. The complexity of their journey showed that love is not simple or pure. It is messy, flawed, and human. But it is precisely in that messy humanity that true connection lives. Forgiveness, patience, and the courage to be fully seen. These are the foundations on which lasting love is built. Like, subscribe, share, and comment the lesson you learned.